Welcome to the Blockbusters and Birdwalks podcast. I am the curator, Garrett Chaffin-Quiray. Today we have a conversation with a friend.
This is Ed Rosa, bon vivant, professional simpleton, and you can check out my and our work on youtube.com at Toothless Richard Productions. This is Gateway Cinema, Episode 17, Emotional Realism Part 2. We're discussing Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Many people use leisure time to pursue hobbies and seek clarity about what brings them greater satisfaction. Among these pursuits is the quest for meaning in a world that can seem quite hostile or at least frequently confusing. Movies are involved with this process because movies often mirror the processes through which our society works out its problems and through which we as individuals find satisfaction. Which immediately gets me into how I know about Welcome to the Dollhouse. In the summer of 1996, I was preparing to leave California. I was moving to New York, going to go off to the film school on that coast from the film school on this coast.
And how exciting that must have been.
It felt really exciting. And there was a lot of stuff dropping into the market. Just to set your appetite, that springtime I'd watched Flirting with Disaster and Fargo. I liked Flirting with Disaster, thought it was minor. Fargo, still don't care much for. But then I was also really fascinated with I Shot Andy Warhol. I heard a lot of talk about Dead Man, which I still have not seen.
It was good.
You couldn't not be an American and avoid Mission Impossible, and I saw it, I think, twice. Mm-hmm. Then there was Cable Guy, and I'm one of those Americans who believes it's Ben Stiller's perhaps greatest film. Well, that and Tropic Thunder. And then there was Lone Star, which I just dearly love. Independence Day showed up. There was Courage Under Fire. There was Trainspotting, which I had seen on a spring break trip to the UK before it was released in the United States in July. I felt like I was ahead of the curve. And right in the middle of that is this movie, Welcome to the Dollhouse. It was a 1995 release at the Toronto International Film Festival where it got some press. And at that point in 1995, I wasn't yet reading accounts from film festivals. There was no internet in my apartment back then. But I was very aware that this Todd Solondz vehicle, Welcome to the Dollhouse, came out. And I had a buddy who was a complete partisan. So for the last week that I was in Los Angeles, packing my meager belongings, preparing to get on a plane and fly to New York, he was like, "You got to see it. You're going to really love it. It's just terrific." And I would ask him why, and he would say, "Well, it's about this girl. She's in middle school. And it's just terrific." And he wasn't very concrete. Over the years since, we remained friends. I have maintained an understanding that when he recommends things to me, he's right. I should trust it. But I was just so busy.
I love having people like that.
Yeah.
It's so great.
They're a positive barometer of things I'm going to go for. So when you said, "Let's watch this," I said, right, I have to honor my friend Chris. Because this is the movie he told me I should see. And so we watched it. I felt so uncomfortable the whole 87 minutes of runtime. A few times, often I make breaks in movies to go get a snack or use the restroom. I took breaks just to kind of stand up and move around because I just was so squirmy. And I realized it was the utter success of this filmmaker telling this story at this time. And had I watched it in 1996, as Chris, my buddy, recommended, I would have probably left the theater. It was because I was much closer to my own middle school experience at that time.
Oh, yeah.
And so the distance helped me feel a little more tolerant. But man, this movie, it's both excellent and it's extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's so uncomfortable at times. I think it can kind of make how wickedly funny it is kind of not as obvious.
But it's not funny, ha-ha.
Right.
It's funny like, ooh, good observation.
Yeah.
A detail. And now, these years later, I always... the first time I saw this happen, it was in Strangers on a Train, the Hitchcock movie, where the baddie pops the balloon of a child at a carnival, and he's so pleased with himself for having destroyed the balloon, right? There's a great moment in Superbad when Jonah Hill is at PE and a soccer ball rolls his direction, and he kicks it the other direction just to be a jerk, right? Our heroine in this movie at a certain point is walking down her little suburban neighborhood in New Jersey, and there's some children in the yard of their home kicking a ball around, and it comes to her and she just kicks it away. She's just so angry. She takes it out of a child's hand actually and throws it. She's just having such a bad day. She acts out in that really childish way, which I have done. I know what that vibe is. I know, and you feel like a jerk the whole time you're doing it, but it also feels good. That observation so pleased me. So, okay, what is this movie about? And we'll build from there.
The movie tells the story of Dawn Wiener, who's the middle child of a family who lives in suburban New Jersey. And her experiences in middle school being someone who is not very popular or well-liked and trying to navigate the social complexities of her age and her surroundings.
Added to that, her parents are totally indifferent to
Yep.
her. They regard her older brother as a nerdy little upstart who's anxious to get into college. All of his remarks are, what can I do to burnish my resume?
Yeah.
The younger sister is the clear darling of the family. She literally spends the movie in a leotard and tights from ballet class, dancing virtually in every scene. And it's an irritant, but obviously Mom really loves that. The dad seems to just be some put-upon middle manager guy, always wearing the button-up shirt with short sleeves. Often some, I presume, office job. They got a split-level house. It's got interesting architecture. It's really badly ugly furnishings. So this place where it's set, I presume, is probably close to the writer, director, producer Todd Solondz' heart. Perhaps it's even the city where he grew up. I don't know, and I didn't research it, but I'm going to presume that much. And what's great about that specificity is this is a wealthy community, relatively speaking. We're not hanging out in apartment buildings. And with only one exception, and it's a character I'm sure we'll mention here in a moment, we spend our time in the middle or upper middle classes of New Jersey life in the early to mid-1990s when this is set, and it's released in 1995. The star is kind of this genius young actress, Heather Matarazzo, who I had first seen in The Princess Diaries as Anne Hathaway's friend when she was then an adult performer. I didn't realize she had a backstory. Another reason why I should have paid attention to my buddy way back when. Because this is one of those really gifted child performers.
Yeah.
Both because she's layered with the complexity we expect of adult performers, but she delivers... Well, she allows us to be repelled and disgusted with her behavior and not lose track that she is the person we're most sympathetic with the entire time.
Yeah.
She does despicable, awful things, but she has terrible things happen to her that she does not deserve, which then motivate her acting out.
Yeah, well, that's kind of one of the sort of, I feel like the, the sort of deeper themes going on here is just how, trauma and abuse pays itself forward unless you're someone who's like conscientious or self-aware enough to actively try to break a cycle like that.
I think that's all correct, and the specificities that we should lay out is she's accused of being a lesbian by the older girls at school that tease her. And that's awful and isolating because she doesn't want to be accused that way. She's bullied by an age peer who's involved with the bad boy in the school. And that bad boy is Brandon. And this is Brandon Sexton III, who I haven't seen in anything else. But he is also strangely affecting. He's a repulsive jerk.
Yeah, but
until you realize that he's also three-dimensional. The one age peer friend that Dawn has is this little awkward boy named Ralphie. And Ralphie's played by Dimitri DeFresco. Haven't seen him in anything else. Perhaps he hasn't continued to be a performer. But he's isolated in a similar fashion. There's the younger sister who she doesn't like, who always gets the mother's attention.
Right.
The mothers and the father are trying to have a 20th wedding anniversary, and they knock over her playhouse in the backyard to make room for their party.
Right.
Ignoring the fact that's the one area that she considers sort of her private space to be herself.
It's like all she's got because she, you constantly see her get out of my room.
She shares a bedroom with her younger sister, and she's hassled by her folks.
Yeah,
and...
you're not supposed to drink in the TV room. But she has her own space out there in the backyard for her special people club, and they want to destroy that.
And then they eventually do, and she's left with very little. Gradually, she comes around to feeling attraction to Brendan. They sort of begin to have a relationship. But because of his backstory, his family is forced to move by the end of the movie. She has kissed off Ralphie, who's kissed her off too. She's isolated and alone. And through the middle of that, her older brother, Mark, starts a band. Mark is played by Matthew Faber. And that band...
The Quadratics.
That's so great. And he plays the clarinet.
I know.
Which I've seen in so many rock bands.
Yeah.
They recruit...
I know, giving it that klezmer touch, no matter what they play.
Exactly right. And that's what it sounds like when they really get going. Mark recruits an older boy from the high school named Steve, and that's Eric Mabius, who I know only from Ugly Betty, where he's kind of the beautiful young man that Betty is hung up on, who can't really do good work, and he's a beautiful young man here. So he's the lead guitarist and singer for this band fronting it, and our girl Dawn becomes immediately fixated. So pause and I want to reconsider. Emotional Realism Part 2 is the theme of this Gateway Cinema chapter that we're negotiating.
Right.
And my reason to drop that title and place it in front of you is because one of the key things that movies did for me at certain important ages was give me a way to explore my own festering trouble through fictional characters.
Yeah.
And allow their experiences to inform the things that I didn't have to repeat on my own, because I can see mistakes and not do them. I can see successes and aspire to them. Mm-hmm. We've all lived through our middle school years, whether we were in parochial or public school, whether we were private school kids, whether we were homeschooled. We have become the awkward 11 years old to 15-year-old person. Mm-hmm. And I'll never, ever, ever give up time travel, go back to that, ever.
Part of, what sort of draws me to Dawn is our experiences in middle school might have had different specifics, but I very much identify with occupying sort of the same place in society that she seems to.
Totally correct.
And what that feels like.
And we're meeting her, and I think she's described as being aged 12. And I think this actress looks to be about that age. Not much older if she is much older. And I guess a contemporary performer, or roughly contemporary, would be Abby Breslin in something like Little Miss Sunshine.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same role in a lot of respects. Just barely pubescent girl behind big awkward glasses with big awkward teeth that she hasn't gone into yet because she's just given up her laughed baby teeth. She's got that weird, snarly smile.
Right.
She's dear and precious and smart and sensitive, but she doesn't know how to communicate herself. In fact, it becomes a running joke. Everybody, all the adults, especially her teachers, are always haranguing her, speak up, speak louder.
Right.
And it's terribly insulting because what she says is perfectly sensible, but nobody's listening.
Nobody's listening. Right, exactly. And it also, that's sort of, I most of the time I'll tell you that I'm the stupidest person in the room, and generally, if that's the case, I'm very happy for that, actually. I love being around people that are smarter than me. But there's something about being smarter that makes it more difficult to communicate with people because she's just more thoughtful. And she's more self-aware than people around her seem to be. So it's like, so they don't listen to her. Or even if they're like, listen, they don't hear what she's saying, or...
And this includes her parents, who plainly don't care about her wishes one way or the other. And there's a way that the whole movie, except for her, in my estimation of this movie, everybody's overacting. Just a smidge beyond reality. Mm-hmm. So that you can't look at this movie and say it's true to life, which is why I think you find it funny. Mm-hmm. Or that's part of its humor.
It's almost like a bit of a John Waters kind of quality to it.
That's not like a bad connection, right?
And that's sort of a remarkable thing is I don't know how you direct that. I don't know how you coach like people to just be like just a little heightened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And she is not, at least to my read. She tends to be within the bounds of what I recall or what I feel is emotionally realistic. Mm-hmm. It feels like she's on the point. Her body's beginning to change, but she's still wearing little girl clothes. Mm-hmm. She's still doing little girl things, but then she's also sampling adults like society. She sees what her parents are up to. She observes her teachers, and she becomes fixated on this older boy, Steve, who she just dramatically misreads and doesn't understand.
Well, and that's kind of honestly a thing that kids do.
Yeah,
too. Like especially around that age. It's like because like adulthood is like coming. You're still a child, and you still like child things, but you also are like wanting to this like push to do more adult things kind of and seeing your peers like being like more like adult.
Well, here's an overshare because the entirety of this conversation is centered on an awkward girl, and we're not awkward girls. We're awkward men who are awkward boys. Mm-hmm. But I got this 13-year-old daughter, and she has this very specific vision of how she wants her adulthood to unravel, and it's based on she would like to have a daughter herself, but the process of making babies, she's well aware of what sexual reproduction is, but the idea that she is going to be part of that, I don't think fills her with any confidence or interest.
Right.
And that's exactly right. There is a point when you want the trappings of adulthood, so she can sometimes talk about wanting to have a home or wanting to have a neat apartment and having a car and having a good job. These things that adults have, and having a daughter of her own. But she doesn't have sort of the impression, although she understands like work is necessary, probably sexual congress is necessary, or adoption. So she's like taking the path that it makes sense to somebody who's trying to hold on to innocence. I would like to adopt a daughter after I've established myself in a career and found a home and have a car.
Right.
These kinds of things. I'm like, oh, that's very sensible. but it's also like it denotes a moment.
Right.
And so we're meeting this character at a similar moment. She is trying to ask older kids and other girls she has heard rumors have been sexually
adventurous.
And they're practiced with this older boy, Steve. They've done things.
Right.
And she hears terms like finger fucking.
Right.
And she hears terms about like making out, and she hears terms about sex.
Right.
But she doesn't quite know what that means.
Right. Even when they accuse her of being a lesbo.
She doesn't quite know what that is.
Right.
Yeah.
She just knows it's a rank out, but like she doesn't quite. Which is then why she turns around in like the next scene and calls her sister Misty. She's like, or Missy, like, drop dead, lesbo.
Yeah,
It's like you don't get the sense that she really knows what the insult means. She's
right.
just trying to like use this thing as a weapon.
Parenthetically and extra-textually, I think that the actress Heather Matarazzo came out in her young adulthood.
Yeah, I read that, yeah.
So it's interesting that she's in this pivotal role where a child is trying to discover the terminology to describe oneself, and she's fixated on an older, sort of impossible-to-get boy who's in an inappropriate match, which is not necessarily an incorrect thing for a queer person to go through while they're discovering who they are.
Right.
So it feels, again, like that could be autobiography written into the part kind of by accident, or maybe there were things they knew on set. Who knows? And I remember the abusive things that I was saying to friends at this age that now embarrass me.
Totally.
And,
oh, my God.
Or the things that I was called and accused of that now charm me or make me laugh in retrospection, but it's more what I did to others.
Right.
The insults that I hurled, the language I was using, when I was simply trying to discover the vocabulary of insult.
Right. Well, and when you're in a situation where something is normal like that, and you're that young, like, you just kind of go along with it.
Yeah.
You
don't question, are you really hurting somebody for a reason that's legitimate? Like, you were mean to me, so I'm going to attack.
Yeah.
You're going to attack somebody because of how they're built or how their eroticism works?
Yeah.
These are too sophisticated a set of questions.
There was so much, like, casual, like, racism, like, at my, like, high school. One of my high schools. Really, it's really reprehensible at any time, but it was just so normal. All like the racial stuff that was being said. There was nobody who really was like the races that were being denigrated in this place.
Which made it in its way a kind of a safe coding exercise.
Yeah.
Because you were applying terms to realize they were negative, but they weren't specific to a person. And that becomes part of your language skill that you'll use as you grow older. And only if you're thoughtful will you realize, I'm being a true asshole.
Right.
This is something I should not say.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks, I don't think, get their coat pulled to that fact. They instead are just learning the pattern, the patois of their particular obscure little neighborhood. And this is an obscure little neighborhood. I'm sure this resembles 1,000 other places in America circa 1995. It's not special, nor is it unusual. The features of it that I found kind of, so a feature of Todd Solondz's sort of worldview. I think I've only seen one other of his movies, and that is Happiness.
Okay, and which is ironically super depressing.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to you that this movie made me squirm. Welcome to the Doghouse. Oh my God, Happiness is a squirm festival. I mean, it's just an uncomfortable movie first to last. But there is a fixation in his worldview that the artifice of everyday middle-class life in America, which is where we are in this movie, that artifice is held together by a mix of good luck, lies, and enough wealth to keep people fed.
Right.
But aside from that, everybody's predatory and dreadful. And one of the figures that pops up in these two movies is a pedophile. A pedophile is one of the lead characters in Happiness.
Okay.
Let me just overshare a detail from the movie. It's one of the lead characters. He's a father who is trying to molest children around him.
Right.
And in I think the penultimate scene of the movie, his son, who has provided the glue allowing the father to target the son's friends. The son confronts his father, why didn't you pick me?
Wow.
Don't you love me? It's so bafflingly both on the nose, repulsive, but it's exactly a correct read for how love and physical comfort and physical pleasure just get so goofed up when parents and children are dealing with one another, but when sexuality, it's so eerie.
Right.
Well, in this movie, towards the end, there's an important part where Dawn is meant to tell Missy she's supposed to hitch a ride home from dance class because her mom is involved in some stuff. Dawn is angry at Missy, doesn't tell her, and Missy is kidnapped.
Right.
And she goes missing, and the police invade her little middle-class home and set up a call center to try to run down where her sister is. Everybody feels guilty. Her father goes into a health crisis and is hospitalized. Is this child going to turn up dead? You're honestly worried. And the trick is, she was captured by a pedophilic neighbor who put her in a trapdoor house under the slab in his yard.
Right.
and gave her all kinds of candy and TV and never laid a hand on her.
Right.
So this dude, Todd Solondz, is a twisted fuck.
Yeah.
On the other hand, that's an exactly good presentation of, I think, one of the things he minds in his worldview, that the artifice of middle-class American life is held together by good luck, some fortune, and the masks we wear, but there's predatory, terrible things behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And that any of us ever reach adulthood with something that resembles warmth and the ability to communicate to our fellow human is remarkable.
Yeah. There's a part where, she, she's hanging out with, Brandon, her would-be assailant.
Who says, I'm going to rape you at 3 in the afternoon?
O'clock. Be there.
Oh, I know. Be on time for your appointment for rape. I couldn't believe it. Like, I had to pause and go walk through. What am I watching, Ed?
But he doesn't. In fact, he's not going to do that at all.
And it's not what he means, but that's what he's saying. And these words are, and when it gets, and she's giddy and gets there on time. Okay, I'm ready.
Right.
She puts her arms up like she's ready to be mauled. And
so then they're talking, and he goes to light up a doob, and she, who's been laying sort of prone on this filthy mattress, somewhere by some railroad track or something, waiting to be raped. That's not happening. So she kind of sits up and leans forward because they're getting into a conversation together.
Want to smoke first?
No, thanks.
Afraid?
No, I just don't feel like it. But I think marijuana should be legalized.
Why do you always have to be such a cunt?
She probably doesn't even know what that means, first off. Yeah. And secondly, she's genuinely trying to make a thoughtful connection with him by saying, because certainly he must be thinking this way as well,
right?
No, I'm an advocate for cannabis,
yeah.
As a consumer of it, thank you for that. I agree, it should be. And she's trying to put him at ease,
right? And it just backfires totally over and over. There's another detail. The parents have this 20th anniversary party. She's kind of boxed out. She sort of refuses to be involved. They briefly notice she's not there, but then they just don't care. It's easier to not have Ruby present. Later, they have a videotape because somebody's been recording the whole thing, and the family shares it. And there's just a really awful moment where the younger baby sister in her ballet costume pushes our lead Dawn into a little kiddie pool. The family they robustly laugh at the plight of this. They think it's so funny, and they're not sensitive at all to the terrible insult and the pain that's caused.
Right. And Steve also, she leaps into Steve's arms, who's very affectionate with her.
That's right.
And he's the object of Dawn's interest. But then here's Missy, getting all the attention again.
And then we cut. She grabs the videotape, takes it out to the street, and hammers it. Hammers it flat and cracks it into nothing because it's the only record of this terribly humiliating thing.
Right. Well, after Missy is let's watch it again.
Yeah.
Let's twist the screws some more.
Yeah.
So Dawn takes it and she runs outside and smashes it up by the trash cans.
And the coda of the sequence is she returns to the bedroom she shares with her baby sister Missy. She's still got the hammer. Right. She wants to conceal the evidence.
Right.
And she raises it as if to strike her sister's head, thinks better of it, and goes to sleep.
Yeah, she's not going to do that.
It's just terrific, those details. I didn't have those particular frustration feelings towards my younger brother, but we're a stretch apart. We're almost 8 years difference. So we didn't pile into the typical kinds of competitions that I think a lot of close age peer children go through.
I had more of that with my brother.
So that moment she's raising the hammer, while I don't recall ever doing that over my brother's sleeping body, and he was so much younger, I do remember fairly intense fighting with some of my age peer friends. When you'd visit them, you'd ride bikes after school and go to their place to go get some punch or something because they got the cool MTV and you don't, or whatever. And then the older sister walks in, or the baby brother walks in, or whoever walks in, and this warfare engages. And you're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
You scatter because it's too much. The pressure is too dense. And of course, this is a 12-year-old girl. She can't. There's no place for her to go.
Right.
And then she's forced to go to school where people are dreadful to her, and then blah, blah, blah.
Well, there's no place where people aren't. Oddly, the only place that seems to be is where, her rape appointment.
Yeah.
It's so, so naturally she becomes, obviously those are empty threats that he's making.
But we don't know it at first because
Right.
he's a lot bigger than her.
Right.
We're thinking, oh my God, what is this movie about, Ed?
Yeah.
Chris, what were you telling me to watch 30 years ago? This is crazy talk. Yeah, it turns a different corner. This character, Brendan, also has an interesting small, B storyline all to himself. It's clear that he's a bad boy. We meet him in the hallway of the school. He and two of his friends are beating up this hapless kid after school, and that's when we realize the sort of ecology of this middle school environment. Don tries to step in and, hey, leave him alone. So they punch the kid in the belly and then they walk off. Don't mess with us, kid, or we're going to come after you.
Right.
Regardless, we know that he's a rough boy.
Yeah, but then, and as a side note, the kid she intervenes on his behalf is then, get away from me, wiener dog.
Yeah.
He's all mad at her, like she's
trying to offer him protection, and it just does not work. Well, Brendan, as I read him, and I didn't do a scene analysis of this, but I'm not sure that his costume changes across the movie. I'm not sure his clothes change.
I think you're right.
And I signal that because he is eventually depicted as being a pretty poor kid from a wrong part of town. At a certain point in the movie, he is questioned by police inside of the middle school. We don't know why, and we don't know the content of that, but we realize that she observes him being pulled out of the classroom and is curious. And she gets her way to his home after school to find out, Brendan, are you okay? She just wants to look after her friend with whom she's begun kissing, not raping, but kissing.
Right.
And there's an attachment. There's something going on here. So she goes to the place, and it's a rundown, beat-up, 2-story house. The father greets her at the door, and he's wearing, a tank top that's all stained.
Yeah.
And she has the impression that they're moving the way the father talks. In fact, when she knocks on the door, Brendan's younger brother, who seems to have Down syndrome, answers the door. So that's a signal. This is a family which is an unusual organization. It seems to be a single father running things. The younger brother has an infirmity that many people would flinch over, including myself. She doesn't have the same reaction that adult Garrett sometimes has. She just asks him if his brother is home. It's a sweet kind of a little moment. Again, Todd Solondz is in touch with some things about the underside of the sheen of American life. So this kid, he's poor, and his dad can't deal with him and needs to send him off to a boarding school, probably a military school, something like this, and probably has to consolidate the household. What we learn from Brendan explaining all of this to her is one, he's running away from home. He's not going to let his dad do this to him. So he's rapidly packing a go bag and going to hop out the window, and he's like, you got to come with me. I'm going to Times Square. I'm going to go make my life. And she says, but you were accused. What did the police accuse you of? And he says, selling drugs. Did you? No. My friends do, not me.
Right.
But I'm colored with the palette of what people think my peer group is all involved with, even if it's not me. I'm assumed to be a ne'er-do-well, and I'm treated as such.
Just like River Phoenix and Stand By Me.
You're right. Exactly right. I am not necessarily a goody two-shoes or a nice boy, but it doesn't mean I'm this criminal jackass.
Right.
But if the world's going to treat me like that, and he even has a little joke in that, well, when I get to Times Square, I'm probably going to have to deal drugs.
Right.
So you coming? Well, that sounds terrible. All of it sounds
Right.
terrible. And so that's a little note of those kids from the wrong side of the tracks.
Love's a confusing thing in my suburban home. I feel so alone. I walk through stairwell rooms. There's voices in my head coming from the floor.
This movie is high cringe.
Yeah.
And it's going for that. So, a meta point. In the few times that I've been near making my own little short films, and in the many times I've analyzed films that I admire, I think to myself, how is the tone created so that the purpose of the filmmaker and the storyteller just comes right through? Further, in something like this, how does Todd Solondz tell his crew and his cast, listen, we're going for something that's deeply uncomfortable, but it's also deeply truthful for an experience that most of us here, if we're being honest, can understand. It's a kind of a universal. The awkwardness of coming of age, especially when your body goes through the puberty run that this child is going through. What do we do to make that completely plain that we're pushing all the buttons on purpose? I got no idea how you do that. Because my training, my analytical skills, my linguistic skills describing all of the above is attached to the sheen of perfect kinds of stories, perfect kinds of moods. And this movie is aiming for something that's deeply imperfect.
Yeah.
On purpose.
Yeah. I couldn't even describe what the vibe is or what, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't know how to tell my crew or my actors. Like,
Right.
nah, like, this is like the vibe we're going. I don't know how you describe that.
And keep it consistent, scene
Right.
after scene.
Right.
And how you continue to push that. And, I'm also just imagining, I think about this a lot because I've got a 13-year-old in the house. What if she had an interest in show business and she found her way into something or other? And so, okay, I have to give permission for her to be involved in projects because she's a minor child and I have to give consent. So I'm reading the script and like, oh, you're going to talk about finger fucking.
Right.
and your character is going to sprain her hands so much that she has difficulty playing a piano.
Right.
And that's going to be made into this very, very, very cringe joke in the middle of the thing while she's trying to figure out how to woo an older boy who's come. Really? That's what you're going to do. Huh. Oh, great. Let me sign off on that. I mean,
Right.
it's like, what parent does that? But
Right.
then how do you convince a parent that it's trustworthy? That this is a worthwhile thing?
Right, without them having seen the finished product and being able to go like, oh, okay, no, this did work. I see it. But like,
And
right,
this is
how do you
being
sell
truthful.
this
Yeah.
to somebody?
Exactly. The adults, they can fend for themselves, and the adult figures in this movie are largely ceremonial. They exist to denote that these children are kind of run amok. They're left to their own devices, and I have to be clear about my own childhood. I have devoted parents, or my father's deceased, but I had devoted parents throughout my childhood. I didn't have a divided household, didn't live through divorce. None of that happened to me. I had a very stable environment.
Right.
That was the choice they made to raise me a certain way.
Right.
Even so, most of my middle school and high school years, most of it was governed by my peer relationships.
Right.
With adults periodically looking in on us called teachers or coaches or time managers keeping a host of children going in one direction. But it
Right.
wasn't a lot of adults like standing over your shoulder. How you doing today, Garrett?
Yeah, no.
That was little seen. It
Yeah.
was mostly sucking up to the bigger kids, the older kids, the popular kids, punching down on the younger, the less popular kids, and learning your place.
Even though like all of your sort of pursuits are like trying to be more adult, it's like I don't want to be anywhere near them. It's just I just wanted to be around like my peers.
And the adults that we meet, for example, you said it was funny. It is funny. There's a scene when they're at an assembly, and there are boys that are picking on Dawn, and they're spitballing her hair like dozens of nobody's stopping them. They're just letting, and she
Right there, like clearly.
there's no way to say that this is her fault. No way, because it's terrible. So she gets a straw and she makes a spitball and she misaims and hits a teacher in the eye.
Right.
A few scenes later, we see the teacher with a eye patch.
Right.
It's just great detail.
Well, and that's so true to my experience in life too. Like, she's just tolerating like this abuse, and finally, when she decides like that's it, I'm going to fight back. Well, then the world like stops her down from trying to fight back.
And that doubles down on the fact she's a girl, so girls aren't supposed to stand up for them.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be ballet dancers like her younger sister.
Right.
They're supposed to be the horny teenagers who also want to have sex with Steve. And it looks like he's at least making time with a couple of them through the course of the movie, but not our Don.
Yeah.
But then, if that were to happen, Don is just she's too young. He's clearly a man.
Yeah.
This actor, I think he was in his 20s, so he's cast above age. And he looks like that mature boy. That kid who was
Totally.
like in 8th grade who was already like
Buying
growing a
beer.
beard on top of Yeah. Because he's that guy, and we all have those guys.
And then when he's playing with the quadratics, like they all look way younger.
I know your mama's pearl. You're a pearl from the ocean of tears. I'm gonna steal that pearl when she don't see. Won't you give me some sweet candy?
And I think that the composer for the movie, who is Jill Weishoff, I think is her name, she assembled a set of bandmates who make the sound for the garage band that Don's older brother's attached to. So when we first hear them, it's just dreadful noise.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Yeah, it's the worst cover of I Can't Get No Satisfaction anyone's ever heard.
Of this older boy with this unique skill, and he wants to be a Springsteen-like musician and go off to the city and make it.
Yeah, this is going to be the picture I'm going to use for my first album cover.
Yeah.
Right.
And everybody just thinks his dream is stupid. And she sort of just doesn't. She takes all that in like, this is just what you say to people. Now, a pause. I have more than a few memories of being roughly this age when you are, to use the phrase, spitballing. That's unfortunate because the movie's seen with spitballing. But you're spitballing with friends like what you want to be when you grow up. And like somebody would say, yeah, I'm going to be in a museum. My stuff's going to be hanging on the wall. And somebody would be like, yeah, I'm going to have a band and we're going to tour. And somebody's be like, yeah, I'm going to have this massive car collection and I'm going to win road race. And somebody's like, I'm going to be in the NFL. Just the stuff that kids dream about. They're unaware of the work and sacrifice from where they're standing,
right,
to where they want to go. They've got no real idea of that, but they know what they want,
right,
in the most general way. My daughter, I want to have a daughter myself, but I don't want to engage in sex to get there. Oh, okay, like that. Okay, that's self-knowing, terrific. But how can that be made true? And when Steve says, I wanted my music to work. I mean, of course, I knew people who wanted their music to work. For a while, I wanted my music to work.
Yeah, I did too.
I was trying to encourage a couple of buddies to be in a band with me when I was in 7th and 8th grade, sitting at the piano that I used to play on in my bedroom. Be like, hey, come on, it'd be fun. We'll jam.
Yeah.
And it never quite lifted off.
Well, and then even when you get one going, it's so difficult.
Yeah. And then the adults, the wiener parents, they immediately just showered bad news all over this idea of Steve's future that Dawn shares with him. Because she seems to kind of admire, like, he's got clarity. He wants to grow up and be this. And when grow up, he's 4 years older than her or so. So he's not ancient. But by her standards, 4 years is a long way off.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy how different it is back then when you're that age. Like, the age difference just seems so... I remember just thinking, like, when I was in junior high, like, the high school, like, the seniors and the juniors, they seemed so old.
Yeah.
And now, if I see high school seniors or juniors, I'm like, those are little kids.
Yeah. You go ahead and put your binky back in your mouth.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
Go back to the nursery and take a nap. You shouldn't be out all by yourself right now. So this movie made me strongly think about 8th Grade, Bo Burnham's movie from maybe 10 years ago-ish.
2018.
Okay. It's a thoughtful, unpleasant, cringy kind of a movie about a slightly older girl at the end of middle school in 8th grade who's going through a lot of these similar transitions. And that didn't occur to me at all until just now speaking with you. But they're very closely connected. They're not twins, but they're a mirroring. So to the greater point, when I began talking with you about this segment of Gateway Cinema, I was discussing how movies resonate with us because they give us lessons about the wider world. They suggest to us pathways taken or not taken. They do all of this work so we don't have to suffer ourselves in our own lives, but we can take the misadventures of a character and then maybe apply them to our own lives.
Anybody can learn from their own mistakes.
Correct.
It takes a wise man or woman to learn from the mistakes of others.
That's correct. And so this provides that, but it also makes you reflect on where you have been, which I think is part of why we're treading around the themes of this movie with some discomfort. It's reminding us of being the age of this character. The movie 8th Grade will do the very same thing. It will remind you, and in that movie, we spend a fair amount of time thinking about a single father trying to help this daughter of his, who he knows is lonely, isolated, and troubled, and just loves her to pieces. He is the obverse of these terrible, nasty wiener parents. He's a great father. But it doesn't matter. If your child is unmoored,
right,
you can't be the answer.
Right. And it's almost like, what the thing Princess Leia says, the more you tighten your grip, Lord Tarkin, the more star systems will slip through your fingers, right? So, like, the harder you try as a parent. And it's funny that you say that because I haven't seen 8th Grade, but I was like, if Dawn was my daughter, I would be the exact opposite, to a fault.
Yeah.
Like, it would destroy me to see, like, my child treated this way, or to have these kind of problems, or, like, feel this isolated, or be this bullied.
Well, I suppose the lasting impression I have of these terrible parents in this movie is every time she's called before the authorities at school, the principal or whomever, for some wrongdoing that she's done, they accept the accusation on face value.
Right.
Our daughter's dirt.
Right.
They don't say, and why did this happen? What is your point of view?
Right.
And if they had, they would have been like, Principal, why are you controlling all of these kids?
Right.
And that comes just to a head.
Yeah.
After her sister's recovered from the pedophile who kidnapped her, she's asked to speak to the whole school and describe her experiences, which mirrors something that happened earlier in the movie.
Right.
And while she's speaking, the children
they just
start shouting,
ranking
wiener
around.
dog,
Yeah.
wiener dog, wiener dog. And the adults in the room can't control what's happening. It's just dreadful.
Yeah.
And so given that that's known, why is it that her parents don't stand up and say, what's happening to you, little girl? Are you okay?
Adults always say, yeah, these are the best years of your life. And in a way, they kind of are.
They can be from a position where you have fewer responsibilities outside of yourself.
Right.
And you also have no control.
Right. And it's like, man, but also, like, what a bleak proclamation. Really? This is it, huh? So Dawn Wiener is going to get to like 30 or 40 and think back on this and be like, man, those were the best years of my life.
That's maybe exactly the big joke of it all.
It was 20 years ago today when Harv and Marge were married. There were 3 little twinkles in their eyes when over the threshold Marge was carried.
This is Blockbusters and Birdwalks. I'm the curator, Garrett Chaffin-Quiray.
I'm Ed Rosa, bon vivant and professional simpleton.
Boop boobity doo.